As we enter Sweet 16 Friday at the 2024 Men's NCAA Tournament, 12 teams remain dancing in the field of 68. We've got 8 teams in action tonight, 4 marquee matchups in the Sweet 16, 4 schools already DRS into the Elite 8, which will tip off tomorrow. A doubleheader on a Saturday night. First up in Boston, 6:09 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the reigning national champs, UConn, the 1 seed in the East region, taking on the 3 seed in that portion of the bracket, Illinois. Then the nightcap in Los Angeles, not the 1, 2, or 3. It's the 4 seed Alabama facing the 6 seed Clemson. In a postseason in collegiate athletics, we get the Tigers and the Tide once again. We'll have 2 more Elite 8 matchups on Sunday afternoon. With the 2 that we have set, we look at what it means this weekend, DRS, and set the stage for the rest of the big dance. It should be no surprise to see UConn as a hefty favorite in the Elite 8. I would not be surprised, depending on what happens tonight, of course, in Sweet 16 action, if the 8.5-point spread in favor of Connecticut for the East Regional Final tomorrow inside TD Garden is the largest number that we see from the spread perspective in the Elite 8. Total 154.5. The question, Donnie, is maybe not who can knock off Connecticut, but who can keep it close and cover a number against Dan Hurley's Huskies.
Yeah, and also you're taking a look at these 2 teams here. We're always going to be jockeying for position because after each game they get reevaluated. And now you have the number 1 overall efficient offense and not Illinois because they faced a very good defense last night. It's not Connecticut here. So Connecticut comes into the game with number 1 on offense and number 6 overall on defense. Good luck beating that. But I do like the fact that if you are UConn and if you're hoping like myself, UConn to get knocked out before they get to the finals, you're taking a look and saying, okay, how can maybe a team get after them? It's not so much the team that's going to say, hey, you know what, UConn, we'll play your style of game. We're pretty good on defense, but we have a good offense, but not outstanding. You're going to get a look here. Let's just say it plays out this way. They're obviously going to play Illinois. After that in the Final Four, let's just say Alabama wins their region and gets to the Final Four. Those are 2 teams that like to get up and down the court, but also have elite offenses and like to shoot the 3-point shot and do a lot of things well. So you're going to have to earn your money here for UConn if you are going to cut down the nets. Having said that, nobody's been able to really penetrate Connecticut because they play great defense here. And again, we just talked about they're not a tempo team. So it's not like, hey, let's steal some points in the open court here. You're going to have to go toe-to-toe with Connecticut on defense in the half-court game, and that's tough to do. But if there's one team that can do it with superstar players playing at a high level, it is Illinois. I love this matchup on paper because I think it is closer than 8.5. But if it's always, you take a look and say, if you're an underdog, what do you do well? What can you use to your advantage here going up against Connecticut? Yeah. They're not really vulnerable anywhere. They're top 31 here in the nation at defending the 3-point line. You want to get in the paint with them? You want to have some fun down low and drive to the rack? They're number 4 overall at only 43.5% as a team. That's what makes it so tough. But I love the matchup here. You go from San Diego State, who's defensive, let's just see if we can get some offense, to a team that's basically like, we think we can beat any defense in the country, and we'll see if Illinois can hold up tonight in that fashion.
It will be really interesting, for Saturday. But yes, I get your point there in the East Regional Final. I find it fascinating. We now have the 2 best offenses in the country facing off against one another. Illinois and Iowa State stayed under a pregame total of 146.5. Game finished with 141 points. Illinois was atrocious from the free throw line and still found a way to win that basketball game. I wonder how many points we see tomorrow. Now, when you look at Connecticut in this 9-game run that we have seen in the past 2 NCAA tournaments, they're a perfect 9-0, of course. They're 9-0 against the spread. They're covering by an average margin of 13.5 points per game. They're winning by an average margin of 22.8 points per game, and they have gone under in 6 of the 9 games we have seen in the last 2 trips to the big dance, including all 3 so far in this year's rendition of the NCAA tournament. But Illinois has played to the over in 15 of its last 18 games. Now, Connecticut does not play at a very fast pace, but they are incredibly efficient. Not only, DRS, has UConn dominated the NCAA tournament, it's really been the story of their last 2 years in non-conference action. They are now 30-1. That one loss came on the road inside the fog in Allen Fieldhouse against Kansas earlier in December in non-conference play. That game stayed under against KU. In fact, 3 of their 4 games against the offenses that rank in the top 20 in the non-conference slate for Connecticut did stay under. But I really think that Illinois' way of winning this basketball game is dictating tempo against Connecticut. I lean with points tomorrow night over 154.5, more so than I even lean with the Illini covering the number.
Yeah, the Illini, by the way, also will chase you off the three-point line, but they don't defend the three-point shot all that well, which is interesting because we take a look at UConn. They do like to shoot the three-point shot, but when we take a look at some of those, matchups with point distribution, if Connecticut just goes, okay, the three-point shot's not there, you're not giving it to us. Do you know who we take a look at? Illinois, 8th in the country here with point distribution at allowing your opponent to score inside the arc. That's something Connecticut can take advantage of because they're not a one-trick pony here. If they need the three-point shot, they'll take it. If they want to go down low, and also keep in mind, you take a look at a team that's top 5 in the country percentage-wise inside the arc at close to 59%. That could be the mismatch rate here. But we're just waiting for somebody to take Connecticut down the wire to see if they can beat them here. And Illinois is one of those teams where if they get cooking on offense, they can do some damage, but they don't have that overall look where I go, wow, they can really exploit. Talking about Illinois going up against Connecticut, it's really not there for them. You just need Connecticut to be a little bit off and you to be on your game here to try to take them down in Boston.
Yeah. I think Connecticut is going to match buckets with Illinois. I don't think Illinois is going to be blown out. I don't think it's a 30-point game like we saw against San Diego State. I don't think it's a hot start for the Illini, and then they cool off in a big way in the second half. Again, I lean with the over of 154.5 for tomorrow night's game in Boston, but I agree with the spread, 8.5 in favor of Connecticut. The West Regional Final is our nightcap on Saturday night at the Elite Eight. It's out in Los Angeles. It is Alabama and Clemson, 2 very familiar schools against one another in postseason play for the biggest trophies in sports. They met 4 times in the college football playoff in a 4-year span, 3 times in the national championship game. How about this in the Elite Eight with both of these men's basketball programs, DRS, looking for their first ever trip to a Final Four, 3.5 points in favor of the Crimson Tide. This is the lowest total Alabama has seen in the Big Dance, 164.5. Clemson should not be scared of being the underdog. They have won outright in all 3 of their victories in the NCAA tournament as a dog, but Alabama the slight favorite. What do you make of the numbers for tomorrow night's Elite Eight matchup in LA?
Yeah, by the way, I'm shocked on Saturday, right? I mean, you use the time to your advantage, Ben, right? NCAA, why not have a tip time at 10 o'clock p.m. and 1 a.m.? We're all going to be able to watch these games. It's the weekend here, but look at that. A 6 o'clock start for a monster matchup here and an 8:49 tip. Ooh, maybe that would make some sense during midweek as well, but as I digress, we're going to get a pretty good basketball game lining up, and from a betting angle for me, these are the games that you love. We know Clemson has a very good defense. We know Clemson's going to try to slow you down. That's not what Alabama wants to do. They want to get out, run, and they want to fire three-point shots. Top 20 in the country here at close to 46% of their total shots come from three-point range. You take a look at Clemson, 288th in the nation at allowing you to shoot the three-point shot at close to 41% of the total shots against Clemson come from three-point range. So we're going to be sinking our teeth in there to Mark Sears up top there. 42% on the season. Griffin, 38%. Walters, close to 40% as well. The three-point shots will be launching from Alabama. But the question always comes up. Crypto.com arena, you're going to have to make those three-point shots. Alabama, one of those teams that's so much fun to bet and watch, as we talk about so much, but they do have games like we always see typically with Arizona. Wow, how'd that talent right here didn't really rise to the occasion. But Clemson's not one of those teams that's going to go toe-to-toe and say, we want to push tempo, which should be an interesting thing to watch out. Also, Clemson does a lot of things very well, just not great. The one thing that Alabama does great is their offense, their tempo, and their three-point shots. If they're knocking them down, I'm not so sure Clemson can hang around. But how do you handicap Clemson? Coach joined us earlier in the show. I asked him the same question, like, how are they here? What are they doing? They didn't show us anything in ACC play, particularly down the stretch or in the ACC tournament, to line up and win 3 straight games and take down Alabama. Alabama's more talented than Clemson. I don't know if I'm betting the side or the total in this game, but I will be lining up Alabama three-point shots throughout this contest here on Saturday.
Listen, I think this is a bad matchup for Clemson. This is not any disparity at the Clemson Tigers, but they allow you to take the three. 40.5% of their opponent's field goal in total this year come from three-point range. It's why I thought Baylor was going to knock them off. Baylor was 6 of 24, 25% in the round of 32 from 3. It was a reason that Arizona, as a top 23-point shooting team, could stay in the game. They were 5 of 28. Obviously, Clemson has done great things to reach the Elite Eight. But if Alabama is even mediocre, if Alabama shoots 40 to 45% from 3 tomorrow night on a Saturday, I think Alabama is going to win this game and cover that number of a 3.5-point spread. Now, the Crimson Tide have gone over in 12 of their last 14 games. But, Donnie, there are 2 other teams in the SEC that play at a slower tempo and pace than Clemson. 257 in the country for the Tigers. That would be South Carolina and Vanderbilt. When you look at the regular season matchups between Vandy and South Carolina, I think only twice did Alabama play either of those 2 teams throughout this regular season. Yeah, that's the case. And both of the games stayed under a total that was sub 160. It is a very low total relative to what Alabama has seen in the Big Dance, 173.5 against Charleston, 172.5 against Grand Canyon. And that stayed under by nearly 40 points. Last night, 174.5 against North Carolina. North Carolina runs at a pace. Same with the Cougs of Charleston. I think we also might stay under tomorrow night, 164.5.